Welcome. You or another adult has identified that your child may have special needs related to their learning. What happens next? What can you expect? Let's find out. First, you should know some background. There is a law called the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It's called IDEA 2004 for short. It's the law that supports children with disabilities from birth to 21 years old in educational settings. According to this law, children who receive special education services are required to be educated to the maximum extent appropriate with their same-age peers without disabilities. Some students are identified with disabilities at a young age and have received early intervention services. They have an individualized education program, also called an IEP for short, before they enter elementary school. However, there are other students who are identified with disabilities in elementary, middle, or even high school. This is because their challenges start to emerge once they are in the learning environment. How do we figure out if your child is eligible for special education services? Your child may be identified as possibly needing special education services in several ways. First, it is important to know that every school district has a child find duty. That means that they need to make an active effort to find students that may be eligible to receive special education services. However, it may be you as the parent who refers your child. It could also be a teacher or other educator that works with your child. If your child is struggling with learning or behavior in the classroom, then they may be given a pre-referral intervention. These interventions occur in the general education classroom. This can come in the form of the SST, which is the Student Study Team. The intervention can also be offered as RTI, which is Response to Intervention. First, we will discuss the SST. When a student is struggling in school, they can be referred to the SST. You, as a parent, are part of this team. After data is gathered, the team meets to discuss student strengths and concerns and develops an action plan to help the student. Examples of interventions include awards for improved attendance, a behavior contract, peer tutoring, or using a planner for homework. After a period of approximately 30 to 60 days, the SST team meets again to evaluate the student's progress. If the action plan was successful, then the team will continue to implement the strategies. If not successful, the team can either create a new action plan or refer the student for evaluation for special education services. The second pre-referral process is response to intervention. As previously mentioned, the second pre-referral process is response to intervention. RTI identifies students who are struggling and delivers both academic and behavioral interventions. RTI has 3 tiers, and each tier lasts approximately 8 weeks. Tier 1 includes classroom and group intervention. If a student is not making progress, then Tier 2 interventions are implemented. These interventions are more targeted and can occur in small groups, either in or out of the general education classroom. Again, if the student is not making progress, then the student moves to Tier 3, which can include intensive, individualized intervention to determine what a student needs to be successful. If a child does not improve through the pre-referral process, then a teacher or someone else from the school may refer the student for an assessment to see if they qualify to receive special education services. Additionally, a request for assessment can occur any time during the pre-referral process. Sometimes the pre-referral phase is skipped altogether. For example, in some districts, a child is automatically assessed for special education services as soon as a parent makes a request in writing for the assessment. However, it is also possible that the school district will determine that it is not appropriate to assess a child for special education services. An IEP is an individualized educational program. Every student has unique needs, and those needs will be reflected in the student's IEP if they are eligible for special education services. There are some time frames that are important in the IEP process, and school districts are required to follow them. The first number to know is 90 calendar days. That is how long the school district has to determine a student's eligibility, hold an initial IEP meeting, and develop the IEP. The clock starts ticking when the school district receives the written request or referral for assessment. Let's break that timeline down further. After receiving the written request for assessment, the school district has 15 days to review the request for assessment, determine if they will assess the student, develop an assessment plan, and notify the student's parents, that's you, about the proposed assessment plan. You will then have 15 days to approve or deny the proposed assessment plan. 15 plus 15 equals 30. So now we are at day 30 of our 90-day process. If you consent to the assessment plan, the school district has 60 days from receiving your consent to assess your child, determine if they are eligible for special education services, and develop an IEP if your child is found eligible. The assessments that they will give your child cannot be based on one aspect, such as IQ, and may not be discriminatory. Your child's evaluation will be individualized because the assessment is based on all areas that are relevant to your child's suspected disability. If your child is found eligible for special education services, there will be a meeting to determine eligibility. Often, development of the IEP will occur at this initial meeting. If it does not, the team has 30 days to develop the IEP, as long as it is within the 60 days from receiving parental consent for assessment. That brings us to the end of the 90-day time frame. Here's what you can expect before and during the IEP meeting. The school must notify you of the meeting early enough so that you have the opportunity to attend. The school must also provide you with a notice of your procedural rights. These rights outline what is required of the school and what you can do if there are problems. You, as your child's parent, are a part of your child's IEP team. You help determine your child's eligibility. The IEP team also includes the special education teacher, the general education teacher, the school psychologist, and someone who represents the school system. Oftentimes, this is the principal. The team can also include specialists or other service providers. IDEA, which is the special education law, requires that parents are treated as full and equal participants in developing their child's IEP. Never forget that you are part of the team because you provide invaluable input on what your child needs to be successful. You, along with the rest of the IEP team, will be shaping your child's measurable annual goals, services, and placement. After the IEP team, which includes you, develops the IEP, you have the option to consent or refuse special education services. The IEP will include your child's present level of performance, their educational goals, and what supports and services they will receive. If you consent to services and placement, the school district needs to provide services as soon as possible. You will start to receive progress updates of how your child is doing at the same frequency as children who do not receive special education services. This means that you should receive something about 4 times a year, around report card time. There will also be an annual review of your child's IEP where the team will check your child's progress, as well as revise and create goals. These meetings will occur 1 year after the last annual. However, depending on the circumstances, there may be more than one IEP meeting per year. For example, An IEP meeting will occur when there is a request from a team member, when there is a proposed change to goals or services, or when there is a change of placement. You also have the right to request an IEP meeting at any time. Your request must be in writing, and the meeting needs to occur within 30 days of your request. There is also a triennial review of your child's IEP. That means that your child will be reassessed every 3 years to determine if they are still eligible to receive special education services or if there are additional needs. And of course, there will be a meeting to discuss the results of the assessment. The first triennial will occur 3 years after the initial team meeting that determines eligibility. Subsequently, the triennial will occur every 3 years thereafter. Your child is welcome to the IEP meeting. Attendance at the IEP meeting is a wonderful way for students to participate in their education and learn self-advocacy. In certain circumstances, you may opt against your child's involvement. However, things change a bit when your child turns 16. Their attendance becomes mandatory because the IEP team will develop a transition plan for your child. The plan must include appropriate, measurable post-secondary educational and vocational goals for your child, as well as activities that are designed to help your child meet their post-secondary school outcomes. Goals include transition services and are based on appropriate assessments. These documents will be called the Individual Transition Plan, ITP for short, and become part of your child's IEP. Thereafter, the ITP will be reviewed annually along with the IEP. That's pretty much the IEP process, but there are a couple other things that you should know. First, if your child is not eligible for special education services, they may still be eligible for accommodations under a 504 plan. Check with your school-assigned 504 coordinator to see if your child will qualify. Also, you have the right to deny both assessment for your child and services for your child if they are found eligible for special education. If you deny assessment, the school district is allowed to pursue the evaluation through due process, which means that a hearing would be held to determine if the assessment will happen. However, if you deny special education services, the school district is not allowed to pursue enforcement through due process. Thank you so much for coming along